For nearly 1,000 years, it was the city that could not be conquered, a bastion of civilization, a fortress of faith, a living echo of an empire long past, Constantinople. Its name alone was a legend, whispered with a mixture of reverence and envy across continents, while the world outside its walls churned in a relentless cycle of birth and decay, while kingdoms rose from dust and returned to it. The city remained. Its triple walls had shattered the ambitions of countless armies. Its golden horn had been a graveyard for hostile fleets. It was more than stone and mortar. It was an idea, a promise of eternity, the last, defiant heartbeat of the Roman Empire, beating on against the tides of time. But time, eventually, comes for everything. In the spring of 1453, a new kind of storm gathered on the horizon, not of clouds and thunder, but of men and steel. The young Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, arrived at the gates, his eyes burning with a holy fire and an ambition that dwarfed his predecessors. He did not come with just swords and arrows, the familiar tools of ancient warfare. The Emperor Constantine XI, a man who bore the name of the city's founder, looked out from his palace. He was a Roman emperor in title, but his empire had shrunk to little more than the city itself and a few scattered territories. He saw not a thriving metropolis of 1,000,000 souls as it once was, but a ghost of its former glory. The population had dwindled to perhaps 50,000. The grand avenues were quiet, the magnificent forums dotted with ruins and overgrown gardens. Yet the spirit of Rome, stubborn and proud, still lingered in the hearts of its last defenders. They were a motley crew, grizzled Byzantine soldiers, daring Genoese mercenaries, led by the brave Giovanni, and ordinary citizens, merchants, artisans, even monks who now stood ready to defend their homes to the last. They had faith, they had courage, and they had the walls that had always protected them. The siege began. The great cannons roared to life, their voices a deafening thunder that shook the very foundations of the earth. For the defenders, it was a sound from hell itself. Each impact sent tremors through the ancient stones. The massive cannonballs, some weighing over 1/2 ton, smashed into the ramparts, not just chipping them, but gouging out huge craters. Day after day, the relentless bombardment continued. By night, the exhausted citizens, men, women, and children, would scramble onto the walls, working tirelessly under torchlight to repair the damage. They filled the breaches with barrels of earth, with wooden beams, with anything they could find. Their hands raw, their bodies aching. They were patching 1,000 years of history with desperation and prayer. Weeks turned into a month. The walls were bleeding, crumbling, but they held. The city's defenders, though vastly outnumbered, fought with a ferocious valor that astonished the Ottomans. Every assault was repulsed. The Byzantine fleet, small as it was, successfully defended the massive chain that blocked the entrance to the Golden Horn, denying Mimze navy access to the city's weakest flank. A flicker of hope began to grow. Perhaps the legend was true. Perhaps Constantinople was, indeed, eternal. But Mehmed was a man of vision, as ruthless as he was brilliant. If he could not sail his ships into the Golden Horn, he would bring them there by other means. What happened next was an act of audacious genius that bordered on the impossible. Under the cover of darkness, his engineers constructed a massive roadway of greased logs, stretching from the Bosporus over the hill of Galata and down into the protected waters of the Golden Horn. And then his army did the unthinkable. They dragged his fleets of Andy ships into Toloverland. When the sun rose, the defenders of Constantinople stared in disbelief and horror. The Ottoman fleet now sat in their harbor, bypassing the chain, bypassing their naval defenses. The sea, which had always been the city's great protector, had betrayed them. Inside the hallowed walls of the Hagia Sophia, the grandest church in Christendom, the people gathered. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the sound of solemn chants. The Emperor Constantine walked among his people, his face etched with exhaustion but his resolve unbroken. He offered words of encouragement, reminding them of their legacy, of the honor in defending their sacred home. On the night of May 28th, an unnerving silence fell over the battlefield. The cannons stopped. Strange lights were seen flickering over the city, a phenomenon some interpreted as the Holy Spirit abandoning the Hagia Sophia. Omens and prophecies, once dismissed, now felt chillingly real. The emperor made his final speech, not as a ruler to his subjects, but as a brother to his brothers in arms. He asked for their forgiveness for any failings and prepared to meet his fate alongside them. Just before dawn, on May 29th, the attack began. A human tide of tens of thousands of Ottoman soldiers surged towards the battered walls, their war cries drowning out the city's last ringing bells. The first waves were irregular troops, sent to exhaust the defenders. They were cut down in their droves, but more kept coming. Then came the elite Anatolian regiments, disciplined and fierce. The fighting on the ramparts was brutal, a desperate, close-quarters struggle of sword, axe, and spear. Giustiniani, the heroic Genoese commander, was everywhere, rallying the men, plugging gaps a line in the defense. 4 hours the defenders held. They threw back, wave after wave. It seemed, impossibly, that they might survive yet again. But then, disaster struck. During a lull in the fighting, a small Ottoman contingent discovered an unlocked postern gate, a small, forgotten doorway called the Kirkoporta. They slipped inside, raised the Ottoman banner on a nearby tower, and opened a larger gate from within. At almost the same moment, Giustiniani, the heart of the defense, was grievously wounded by a cannonball fragment. His pained evacuation from the walls caused a panic among his men. The line wavered. It was the moment Mehmed had been waiting for. He unleashed his ultimate weapon. The Janissaries, the Sultan's elite, fanatically loyal household troops. They charged at a weakened section of the wall near the gate of St. Romanus with overwhelming force. They broke through. The cry went up, "The city is taken." The organized defense collapsed into a desperate, chaotic fight for survival in the streets. The Emperor Constantine was last seen tearing off his imperial regalia, plunging into the thick of the fighting, a simple soldier defending the heart of his city. He was never seen again, vanishing into legend, the last Roman emperor dying with his empire. The sounds of battle gave way to screams as the city was over. Ancient icons were shattered, libraries were burned, and 1,000 years of accumulated knowledge and art were lost in a single day of fire and fury. By midday, Sultan Mehmed rode into the city he had conquered. He made his way to the Hagia Sophia, dismounted, and entered the magnificent basilica. He stopped the looting, looked up at the golden dome, and ordered that the great church be converted into a mosque. As the first call to prayer echoed from its walls, the sun set on the Roman Empire forever. The crescent had risen over the cross. The fall of Constantinople was not just the end of a city, it was the end of an age. The medieval world died in its streets. Refugees fleeing west carried with them the ancient texts of Greece and Rome, sparking the full flame of the Renaissance. European powers, cut off from Eastern trade routes, were forced to look to the seas, launching the age of discovery. The world's map, its balance of power, its very direction, was redrawn. A single day in 1453 closed one chapter of human history, and violently, tragically, and irrevocably began the next.